Hey, Salvador. So it's good to see you again. And here we are together. And we're going to start this conversation as like playing some jazz. So how do we start?
Let's see. Maybe. Perhaps. Yes.
Well, one thing that felt great is, after you started doing it, I realized, hey, you know what? I'm joining, and it's getting into something where there's a pleasure in
Yes.
playfulness.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing that you just let yourself express whatever it comes. I don't think about it. I just let myself express. And I know that whatever it comes, it will be meaningful, not always playful, but certainly meaningful in somehow. And I can trust this way of expressing myself. And I know also that you will feel something as I feel something. Somehow we are in relationship. Even if we are silent, what I do is not only as if I was alone. I'm with you now, so it has to do with my being here with you, my expression. When you make some sounds and music also, that kind of feedback, retroalimental, it's like it gives more energy, more movement.
Yeah. So there's something about trust. That trusting that something will come up, something will be communicated, and more important, something will be meaningful.
Yes.
And something about, hey, it's not just you alone or me alone, but there's two people here, and something will happen in that connection.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, now an image came to me, and I imagined that we were in a river, in a canoe, and we start remando in the river. And there are some parts of the river where the water goes really fast. There are not many rocks, but the flow of the river, it comes fast, so it's kind of exciting. I can feel like a risk, and I say, well, I cannot fight with the river. Maybe what I have to do is find a way to flow with the flow of the river. I cannot exactly to dirigir too much, but I have to combine something that I can do that gives some direction, but at the same time, I follow the river direction, the flow of the river. So it's a kind of a combination that allows me to feel more relaxed, calm, and trust.
Yeah.
That I won't felt down into the water.
Yeah. So you cannot control stuff. You realize you cannot control. So
Yeah,
instead of controlling, it's flowing with. It's
yeah,
interaction.
yeah,
And so that kind of brings more of a sense of calm than if you're trying to, make things happen a certain way, and then it's not going to work.
yeah. I'm gonna be like fighting against something, spending too much energy, and I'm going to desperdiciar recursos.
Mm-hmm.
No? So I better go this way.
Yeah. So you're following the flow and you're responding to the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Like I allow myself to feel the flow, the movement of the water and the canoe, and to express whatever it comes with my own movement and sounds, and being like aware of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, now I miro a un lado, I look at one side, and I see you, and I want to ask you, how are you doing? Are you enjoying the trip? Are you enjoying this going through the river?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So this kind of a phrase, it's go with the flow, but it doesn't quite feel the same way, because go with the flow is, okay, I'm letting myself carried by the flow. But what you're describing is something where you're not just, passively following it. There's an engagement that's there.
Yeah.
You're very alive in it.
Yeah. And if I can move my canoe in some direction, I try to move it, but without fighting with the flow of the river. It's not like I just I will let the river take me. No. I also want to be like in a very active way there, but without fighting the river. Just kind of, how would you say, this kind of relationship with the flow of the river. It's like being one with the river without losing my own way of being.
Yeah. That's very, it feels very powerfully expressed. You're being one with the river without losing your own self, your own way of being yourself. Yeah. It's not either or.
Yeah.
There's both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then it seems like we came to some more calm waters.
Yeah, so I want to disrupt the calm. I want to disrupt the calm a little bit, okay?
Yes.
And so you're coming to the calm waters, and wow, it's nice. It may be a little boring, but it's calm and easy. You're not thinking about it. And like in these movies where you have the canoe and suddenly you notice that there is a big roar in the sound of a roar, and then you realize that ahead of you there's this big fall coming, and oh my God, what are you going to do?
It seems like the main alternative that I have is to follow the river, to find a way to jump into the waterfall. I know that I don't know what will happen. I don't know, even I haven't been in that place before, so I don't even know how high is the waterfall. But since it seems like the only alternative that I have, I think that the best way to do it is just allow myself to be one with my canoe, the river, and the jump, the movement and the jump.
Yeah. So if, since there is no alternative, it would really actually be an enormous waste of energy to obsess about what could have been. Because right now, this is where it's at, and there's no choice in the matter.
Yeah. So like I need all my attention and energy to keep going and falling.
Yeah.
Each moment I will know what I can do, what movements. But so I don't know anything before that. So I have to be each moment discovering what I can do.
But so it strikes me as you talk about it this way that there's a phrase that somebody who I like a lot, Steve Hayes, came up with, a sense of acceptance and commitment. And so this is a reality, and this is accepting reality. But it's not a passive acceptance. It's that sense of commitment to what it is that you can do at the time.
Yeah. And somehow, because I'm not thinking, I would say, but somehow I can feel that I may be able to salir bien. O sea,
to come out okay.
Yeah. I also know that I might die, but I don't know, and it doesn't make any sense to worry about that in that time.
Yeah. But so maybe where I'm intrigued here is to say this kind of thought, everything might be end up well, or if it doesn't, there's no sense in worrying about it, is something that one does not arrive at easily. There's a lifetime of experience to come up with that. I'm curious about, in some way to talk about what has allowed you to be in that place of accepting reality instead of arguing with it.
Wow, that's a moving question. I might not even have clear how can I come to this point, because I used to be very controlling. I was used to think everything, to plan, and everything has to be under control according to a plan, to some steps. So when something didn't come out the way that I had thought it was wrong, it didn't give me a chance to look for something valuable in whatever it came, different from what I have thought. I think that many experiences in my life have helped me to move in this direction, but indeed, the practice of listening to myself in a focusing way and being accompanied by other people in this way, this has helped me a lot to move in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe also my own practice as psychotherapist. I sometimes I like to say that maybe a pesar de mí, I was able to express in a spontaneous way in a psychotherapy session, for example, like doing a movement or making some sounds. And one aspect of me was kind of wondering, what's going on? Are you crazy? Or what happened? But then when I discovered that these expressions help the people to make contact with some aspects of his or her experience, then I start thinking maybe it's not so crazy to do this in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's the tendency to control, and that watchful eye of the controlling self, looking at it in horror as the other part of you, the more spontaneous part, does something. Oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, actually it is working. So maybe there is, like reluctantly agreeing that there is some value in that. And so then, more of that more spontaneous part together with the connection to the spontaneous part, with the attention to moment by moment experience in a focusing way.
Yeah. And then I started giving myself some chances, like, for example, when I was traveling, walking through a city, for example, I look at the map and then I will say, well, I already see some places that I wanted to see guided by the map. Now let's just walk around and see what happened.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And to my surprise, I find out very, very interesting places, very nice places that I'm sure that I wouldn't been there if I only would have guided my walk with a map. So I start thinking, oh, maybe there is something interesting here. I may allow myself be guided by my own sensations and feelings without worrying too much about that.
Yeah. So I have that same experience in traveling, that actually I find it very, very constraining to try and follow a map or an itinerary. And the pleasure is kind of that wandering around, having some kind of a rough idea of, where is where, but just kind of allowing chance to happen. But now you're leading there is you're talking about traveling through life, like a new city, a new country, and following that sense of that inner guidance of what feels right, what doesn't feel right, step by step to where you go, as opposed to having some kind of a rigid planning for life.
Yeah. And I think that these 2 years with the pandemic, that gave me also a very great opportunity to move on in this way. It felt very clear. We are in a very uncertain life world. We have many information, but any of that information solve every questions. Always remains some uncertainty to choose, to decide. So I think we have to, maybe it's better to live in a different way, guided in a different way. Of course, if I have information, I pay attention to that, but I don't expect that there I will find all the answers. It's just another resource that I have. And then I say, oh, I better go this way and see what happens. And I pay attention during the time that I'm walking or going through that direction.
So that's a little bit different from the city, because in a city there is a map. But what's happening in life is, there's no choice, there's no map. Might be some people who have some ideas about you have to do this way or that way,
Yes.
but there's no real map. And then you're reminded of it with COVID even more, like there's all this uncertainty. And so then there's not even, what you're saying is not even a question of having a map to follow. That's an illusion.
But I remember very much that when I was young, and even as a young adult, many people used to ask for, what is your goals in your life? What is your life plan? And I tried to do that maybe twice, 3 times. And I couldn't find any sense to do that. I don't know. I can imagine to live in this way, like making a plan. In 5 years, I want to be there. 10 years, I want to have all these things. I feel that I have been very lucky in my life. And I feel that maybe most of the things, situations, opportunities, people that I value in my life, they came to me without me looking for in a very explicit and direct way. When they came, I decided to be there or to accept those people. But it's more like when I try to get some goals, not always I could reach them.
Yeah.
And then I found others that they were maybe better. So kind of say, well, in that way, life has been very generous with me. I think, I don't know how to say that. In a way, I think that there is energy in more in the universe, and I sometimes I think that there is somebody that I can call God with I think that makes me sense to trust that also in this way to live my life.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that sometimes I'm afraid, I'm insecure, I feel confused. Of course, I do feel that way also.
Yeah. So we're not trying to create a sense of beyond human condition, but just that one is you're talking about the fact that there is maybe some luck, life has been generous in some way for you, and describing something about essentially that it's not about sitting in one place and making plans and then, executing them, but starting to be in movement. And then as you are in movement, just the same way, we started this conversation with how do we start? And then what came up is some musical notes and you started doing them. And then you follow. Once you start, it gets you a place where you are. And then somebody joins. And then, and then there is a flow. Yeah. So you're talking about starting being in movement and listening and just continuing to move based on what you're listening to and what's happening.
Yes. And sometimes I need to make a pause, to rest, and make a pause for contemplation. And make a pause to be quiet in silence. And sometimes to make a pause because I feel that I don't know what I will do next. Sometimes I feel stuck. I'll wait.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's part of what is.
Yes.
And sometimes there's movement, and sometimes you know where to go, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you get stuck.
Mhm.
And that's part of the path, and it's part of the river.
Yes.
And that's the improvisation with music.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So we're just taking a pause and seeing what might come up. If it feels right to stop here, or if there's something else that kind of wants to be said.
One thing that comes is that sometimes something that might be a little bit difficult is when somebody close to you ask me, somebody close to me ask me, why don't you do that? Why don't you go to that place? And I have no reasons, but I have a clear sense that I don't want to go or that I don't want to do that. And the other day, somebody asked me, and I said, I don't know, but I feel clearly that I don't want to do it. And I felt that maybe my answer didn't like that person didn't like too much the answer, or maybe thought that that was a strange answer. So I realized that not everybody sometimes can understand this way of guiding myself in life or making some decisions, mainly when I have no clear conceptual explanations or reasons to say, oh, I do this because this or this, or I didn't do it because this or this.
Yeah, so something comes up for me as you talk about it this way, of saying that it feels like it's a whole, it seems like a relatively simple thing, but it's like a whole concept of what it's like to be human. Mm-hmm. That if, we think about being human as being logical, then any decision has to be logical.
Yeah.
If we think about being human, that logic is kind of overrated. That's not how we function. It's not that it's not that we choose to be illogical, but that human beings were not meant to be logical. That we kind of created logic and some way can use it, but that's not how we function. Then what you're describing is a natural way of functioning. And people who always have justifications probably are rationalizing instead of that's a real motive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering about that sense of just it's kind of a different understanding of what it's like to be human.
Yes. And the culture in which I live many times don't make much room for these feeling sensitive aspects of living and guiding my life. Mm-hmm. There are more demands on logical arguments, ideas, rules, costumbres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So then it becomes, how do we navigate this? How do we find a way to translate into words that other people can understand this way of functioning?
Yeah. But I'm convinced that this makes a lot of sense in everyday life.
Yeah, of course, of
That
course.
is not only for psychotherapy or counseling or some specific settings of professions or relationship. I'm convinced that this is for everyday life
Yeah,
in different ways, of course.
yeah, 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 yeah. That we certainly don't have the capacity. It might be nice if it was an option, if we had the option to really plan everything, but we simply do not have that capacity.
Mhm.
And so life and human endeavors are more about that kind of meeting things where they are and navigating.
Allow ourselves feel inside all that situation
Yeah,
and move with the circumstances, the people, and that guide sometimes can be made explicit, but many aspects are not explicit. But you can feel in a very clear way. And,
yeah,
and you can share with others that those feelings and sensation is not that only a kind of a personal experience. It's also a common and shared experience with other people.
yeah, yeah. So the experience of sensing what's happening, sensing reality, sensing the environment, sensing the shared field, and communicating about that, as opposed to trying to translate it into words and the realm of logic.
Yeah.
And so we're coming back to that notion of jazz, because it's like, if you're accustomed to playing classical music, you're going to freak out about playing music that doesn't have a score.
So I would like to express it in that way.
Thanks, Salvador.
Thank you, Serge.